welcome to Delectable Flavors. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to make number cakes. Now for this recipe, you will need a batch of my ultimate chocolate cake. I've left a link in the description box on how you can make this cake. You will also need your desired number pans if you have them, depending on what number cake you're trying to make or what number you're trying to do. I'm trying to do 18, so I'm just using 2 rectangular pans and I'm just going to cut out the numbers. But if you have number pans, feel free to use them. So now what I'm going to do is divide my batter upon these 2 pans and then put them in the oven to bake. My cakes have now cooled and I'm going to take them out of their pans so I can use a knife to cut out my numbers. I'm just going to take it here, get a corner, another corner, lift. I'm going to put that aside, put my tray aside, and put this right there. Now that's going to sit while I do the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. Get one side, try to get the bottom, and then push out. And you're going to need cutting boards or anything you can cut on because you're going to cut directly on the cakes. I'm going to leave the parchment paper on as the parchment paper makes everything easy for transporting. So I have these cut out numbers and I'm going to use these to make the number 18, and what I'm going to do is just put them on my cake and then using a knife I'm going to start cutting. On this side I do have my pencil marks as I wanted to measure how big everything is going to be. Now I'm going to take a knife to cut into my cake, and I'm going to cut at a very sharp angle, but I want to make sure I'm using all the space because I want to have minimal cake waste. But don't forget that none of the cake will be wasted. You can use these to make cake pops or you can use them as a quick snack to eat. I'm just going to cut along the edge. Now I've made my first cut. I'm going to do a small cut here. Now that I have that cut, I'm just going to move my number 8 for the time being so I can work on this. And I'm going to cut this again. Now I'm going to do the same on this edge. I'm hitting it onto my cutting board just so I can hear the cutting board to make sure I'm cutting all the way to the bottom. Now I'm going to continue on this path. Now I'm going to do this edge here. And if you're wondering, well, how are my cakes ready? There are always 3 indications I like to use. It's springing to the touch. A toothpick comes out clean. As you can see, my knife came out clean when I cut into my cake, as well as it's curling away from the pan. That also means it's ready. So I'm just going to continue cutting. Now I'm going to take off my template. And don't worry if your cake, the skin, the top skin, the caramelization comes off your cake, as it's not a big deal as the icing will be covering it. And now what you're going to do is repeat this step per number of layers you are going to use. So now that I have all my numbers cut out, I just need to cut out the circle in the 8s, and I'm using this glass jar I have. If you have a mini cookie cutter or any ring sort of shape that feels like it will fit perfectly, feel free to use that. So I'm going to put on my stencil again, just so I can have a rough idea on where I can put all of my 8s on, so they're all relatively equal. And if I lift it up, I can see that's a good spot to put it on. And I'm just going to make a larger indent. Now I'm going to repeat this step for all of my number 8 cakes. And now using the same knife I used before, I'm going to cut into my cake once again where the holes I have indented are. Now what I'm going to do is flip my cake over, and I can see that the circle isn't too nicely done on this side, so I'm just going to get my jar, make a small imprint, and then cut again. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be better than it looked before. Now what I'm going to do is pick up my cake, and then push all the cake crumbles to a side, and then put my cake back down. Now I'm going to repeat this step for the rest of my number 8s. So now what I'm going to do is get my cakes, and I put them in the fridge to chill just so they're easier to work with. And I'm going to be using my vegan American buttercream to put the dollops of icing on my cake. And I'm going to use a piping bag to combine my cake layers. And what I'm going to do is just pipe some dollops. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to put this in the fridge for 5 to 10 minutes. So I've just put this to chill, and now I'm going to put my second cake layer on top. So I'm just going to put my number 1 on top. And you can still see the bubbles, which is great. And now I'm going to put my number 8 on top. I'm just sticking to a 2-layer cake, but I'm going to measure which side seems right. This size definitely seems right, but I'm going to check the other way anyways. Both sides actually work. So I'm just going to see which side seems more aligned from the side. I think this side works. So I'm just going to plop it on. And now using my icing bag, I'm going to ice on more dots. And I'm going to do this quickly because I don't want the icing to melt, as after this step I will be decorating. And now I'm just going to keep going. The shell of the cake on the top had like disappeared or gone off. That's a-okay, as the icing blobs will cover them anyways. The beauty of the number cake is that you can actually see the flavor of the cake without cutting into it. So you can show off your flavors over there. And that's good. So now I'm going to start decorating my cake. So what I'm going to do is get my toppings, and I have Smarties, my DIY donut sprinkles. If you're wondering how to make that, I've left a link in the description box on how you can make that. I also have lovely wafers here, some birthday cake Oreos, as this cake is for a birthday. I have some Fudgios, And I also have my homemade crinkle cookies. These are my chocolate crinkle cookies, and I've left a link in the description box on how you can make that. So what I'm first going to do is strategically place my Oreos, and I want them to stand on my cake. So now I'm going to take my Fudgio as well. So what I'm going to do is get my wafers and break a piece, and then I'm going to put them lying down, and I'm going to put one more on my number 1, and I think right here is a good position. And I think that's good. So now what I'm going to do is add my donut sprinkles. And these are just to add a little bit of color in my number cake, as I don't want it to look dull. I want some life to be part of this cake. I'm just going to add a few more, but I'm also going to add my small ones, just so I could have a different flavor. As my donut sprinkles, the larger ones are Oreo, so I do want some other flavor than Oreos going on in this cake. Now what I'm going to do is add my beautiful crinkle cookies, and I have these beautiful crescent shapes, and I'm going to use these to accent on my cake. I'm going to put it right here, and now I'm going to put my small crescent right over here. I don't want to put it there because I don't want it to be balanced. I'm just going to flip it like this. And put it on the cake like so. And now I'm going to leave it like this. I have to work fast because the icing is starting to melt. I'm going to add one of my quarter crinkle cookies there, and I'm going to add also some Smarties to anywhere I find gaps. Oh, my little Cheerios falling off there. I'm going to add one more there, and I think one there. And now I'm going to put this in the fridge to set for 5 minutes. But before I put it in the fridge, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. This is what my beautiful cake looks like. So now what I'm going to do is decorate the top of my cake with some Hershey Kisses, as well as with some Kit Kat and arrow. Also going to add a kiss right here. So there you have it. Your beautiful number cake is now ready to eat. If you did enjoy this tutorial, please give it a big thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more delicious recipes. Till the next recipe, bye-bye.